And so now we welcome Reverend Kathy.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Dennis and Sandy, for the beautiful music. And thank you, Adam, for the brilliant compilation for creative thought. So appreciative of our team. So aloha, everyone out there in YouTube land. It's always so good to come together, even if we have to do it virtually, especially during these times that have been so trying and sometimes even devastating. So we have an interesting theme this month. It is mindfulness for mavericks. Mindfulness for mavericks. The word maverick seems pretty apt for our community, as we are a group of like-minded people who have walked very different and often very out-of-the-box pathways to arrive at the Center for Spiritual Living, East Hawaii, in Puna, right smack dab in the middle of the land of the Punatics. So the late English actor and director Alan Rickman said this: "Maverick is a word which appeals to me more than misfit. Maverick is active. Misfit is passive. The idea fits for me because I say that we are a community of mavericks who are actively living and demonstrating the truth of who we are as metaphysicians who believe in the power of our word." Our suggested weekly theme, however, just put me off. It was so ironic to me, and that is just breathe. I must admit, again, this topic absolutely blew me away in light of the last words of George Floyd, which have been embedded into the consciousness of our world. Please, I can't breathe. This is not the first time these words have been spoken by someone who has died by the hands or by the knee of a rogue policeman, but I pray, and I know that you do also, that this is the last time. These words were written by Ben Cohen, who is the co-founder of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream. He wrote, "My name is Ben. I am a 69-year-old white American man. I can do and say and be all of these things without fear, as can my family. I stand with my black brothers and sisters. I will not be killed. I can go jogging. Ahmaud Arbery. I can relax in the comfort of my own home. Botham Jean and Atiana Jefferson. I can ask for help after being in a car crash. Jonathan Farrell and Renisha McBride. I can have a cell phone. Stefan Clark. I can leave a party to get to safety. Jordan Edwards. I can play loud music. Jordan Davies. I can sell CDs. Alton Sterling. I can sleep. Ayanna Jones. I can walk away from the corner store. Mike Brown. I can play cops and robbers. Tamir Rice. I can go to church. The Charleston Nine. I can walk home with Skittles. Trayvon Martin. I can hold a hairbrush while leaving my own bachelor party. Sean Bell. I can party on New Year's. Oscar Grant. I can get a normal traffic ticket. Sandra Bland. I can lawfully carry a weapon. Philandro Castile. I can break down on a public road with car problems. Corey Jones. I can shop at Walmart. John Crawford. I can have a disabled vehicle. Terrence Crutcher. I can read a book in my own car. Keith Scott. I can be a 10-year-old walking with my grandfather. Clifford Grover. I can decorate for a party. Claude Reese. I can ask a cop a question. Randy Evans. I can cash a check in peace. Yvonne Smallwood. I can take out my wallet. Amadou Diallo. I can run. Walker Scott. I can breathe. Eric Gardner. Garner. I can live, Freddie Gray. This is reality. Enough is enough. Now, for those of us white folks who do not believe that there is such a thing as white privilege, we need to remember these words and deepen our awareness of what has been the truth of people of color since they were captured and brought to this country as slaves in the 17th century. Racial equality activist Jane Elliott always poses this same challenge to every audience she addresses. She will ask, if you white folks would be happy to be treated the way the society in general treats people of color, our black citizens, please stand. And she'll wait, and she'll pause, and then she'll rephrase the question as if people didn't understand it. If you would be happy to be treated the way black citizens in our society are treated, please stand. And then she waits again, and she notes, no one is standing. And she says, this means that you know what is happening, and you know you don't want it for yourselves. She then asks, why are you so willing to accept and allow this treatment for others? Now, right about now, you're probably thinking to yourself, but I don't allow it. And I don't doubt for a moment the sincerity of all of our intentions toward promoting equality. But I feel that we all must ask ourselves, what are we doing to ensure that we are not complicit in allowing this behavior to continue? The Spiritually Motivated Social Engagement Committee, that's a mouthful, but they're a committee that exists within Centers for Spiritual Living. They drafted this statement on behalf of our Centers for Spiritual Living. Centers for Spiritual Living calls for racism in the United States to end. We are grieving lives that ought not to have been lost. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery are the most recent in a list of countless unarmed African American and Black people who have been murdered for the color of their skin over the past 400 years in the United States. Too many generations have suffered, and it has never been and is not now acceptable. We denounce racism in all forms, the starkness of unapologetic, intentional racism, the racism of silence in the face of injustice, the systemic racism inherent in our education, justice, income, and opportunity inequality, and the racism that lies hidden in our individual hearts and minds. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, the corporate, the academic, and the social sectors. We value a community-wide climate of safety that arises from compassion, justice, mutual respect, and kindness. Therefore, we join our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, who, echoing the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, said, "You and I should form the habit of taking definite time each day to contemplate and affirm peace with justice. For there is no peace possible without justice. But faith without works is dead. We should not only pray, we should act, each contributing the best they have to the common purpose, each willing to make any sacrifice necessary, for there can be no individual self-preservation without the preservation of all." We call upon ourselves and the faith communities in the United States to take action that shows that we have heard the cry of suffering and that we own responsibility for it. Whether the action is prayer, donations to organizations that promote racial justice, rigorous self-education, or active engagement, let not this moment in history pass unattended. May the actions we take be steeped in peace and respect for the sacredness of each life, knowing that whatever we do, individually or collectively, must be divinely directed from a higher consciousness. When we apply our proven spiritual principles through rigorous practices and compassionate action, the desired results cannot fail to demonstrate. Our organization has drafted a powerful and a passionate statement, and I'm proud of the spiritually motivated Social Engagement Committee for speaking up and encouraging social activism as well as spiritual contemplation and prayer. I used this same quote in our weekly e-bulletin in my message this week, and I think it bears repeating. Dr. Holmes said, "It is a popular belief that those who practice this science are a class of people who declare that everything is perfect, when, as a matter of fact, everything in the objective experience of the human race is not perfect, and indeed is far from perfect. The popular idea of the practice of spiritual science is entirely a misconception. This popular idea, excuse me. A religious scientist is not one who assures himself that wrong is right, that evil is good, that limitation is freedom, that bondage is liberty, or that sickness is health. They do not claim that our objective experience is an illusion, but they do make this claim that behind the phenomena of human and material existence, behind the slow and persistent evolutionary processes, there is, as Emerson stated, one mind common to all people. They claim that this mind is perfect, and they have access to this mind. So we know we all have access to this mind. We all emerge from this mind, and this mind expresses through us and as us. This is the mind that most of us call God. And we can remember this truth as we stay centered in spirit, as we determine the roles that we are to play in the healing of the sickness of racism that has permeated our society. While it's true that we have been horrified by the violence and destruction that have accompanied the amazing groundswell of protest, first of all, we need to remember that 95% of the protesters have been entirely peaceful, even though the news does not show that statistic. We need to also remember the ideas of Dr. Martin Luther King. He put this forth in 1967 when he said, "A riot is the language of the unheard." And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. As long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these reoccurrences of violence over and over and over again. And once again, Dr. King was prophetic. We remember that after Dr. King was assassinated, there were massive urban rebellions that led to untold amounts of property damage and accelerated the clashes with the police and the National Guard. But as a result of these rebellions, President Johnson quickly signed the 1968 Civil Rights Act into law. And this was a monumental and life-changing event. However, the conditions that led to our current protests remain. Rage is considered unenlightened, says Buddhist teacher Zenju Earthlyn Manuel in her article, Awakening Fueled by Rage. She continues, but rage can be illuminating, life-giving, illuminating that which must be exposed before humanity can shift into a greater experience of interrelationship and of love. It's unfortunate that urban rebellions are often the only thing that have transformed and accelerated change. But at the same time, these rebellions engender backlash responses that have led to the increase of policing and incarceration of Black Americans. I want to stop now and acknowledge that we have seen some amazing actions being taken by police officers and governing officials that have quelled the riots and restored peace to the protest. by doing such things as kneeling with or walking with the protesters, or calling out their fellow officers who have been guilty of police brutality. Officers in Flint, Michigan, Chicago, New York City, Santa Cruz, and many others have been part of this positivity. And Houston Police Chief Art Escobedo recently was quoted as saying, "I am outraged by the Americans who don't see a problem." Police chief. On the other hand, it is when police show up in riot gear with guns pointed that violence and rioting accelerate. It's a sad, no, actually, it's a tragic day in our country when a peaceful protest is interrupted by the National Guard and police officers shooting rubber projectiles and unleashing tear gas to clear the way for an unnecessary and ridiculous photo opportunity. Our president and other governing officials need to remember that our nation was built on protest. And rather than inciting more violence by their actions, they must ensure that the right to peacefully protest is protected. Our leader cannot say that the white people protesting and coming out for white supremacy are very fine people, and on the other hand, call our demonstrators today thugs and terrorists. Which is it? I choose, though it is very difficult some days, and I heard Sandy saying that as well, I choose to focus on the uniting spirit that has led so many people, thousands upon thousands, to suit up and show up and speak up for justice while demanding lasting change. I heard another minister give a profound talk the other day, and one of the things she pointed out was that we're in a birthing process, and she reminded her audience that the process of birthing a baby is messy and bloody and painful and scary, as the mother pushes through her pain while wondering, how can something so big come from something so small? I align with her belief that we are in a birthing process, and we must push through our individual and collective pain to bring lasting change into fruition, remembering as we do the words of Dr. King. Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We all have a role to play. These are the words of our founder, Dr. Holmes, as he talks about possibility. He says the position that modern philosophers take is called the theory of emergent evolution, which means that when nature needs something, it demands it of itself, and out of itself makes it. So in the evolution of the human being, when it was necessary for him to grasp, fingers were produced. When then, if it is necessary for you and me to know something we don't know, can we not, according to this theory of emergence, demand the information of ourselves and have it come to be known? We believe that when the human mind individually and collectively needs a new truth, out of the necessity of the desire comes the truth it needs. Everything we know in philosophy and science proves it. Out of the desire for a greater good comes ways and means for creating the greater good. And if every person made a demand upon the intelligence for the solution to the present world problems, through the minds of those people who are our national leaders would come an adequate solution. This is in line with what we know about the way life works. And that is what's happening right now. Though it may seem too little, too late, we must acknowledge the emergence of new actions being taken to right the wrongs, to promote inclusion, to enact new laws, and to ensure that the arc of the moral universe continues to bend toward justice. In one of his daily messages this past week, Franciscan Richard Rohr commented, "Mother Teresa diagnosed the world's ills in this way. She said, 'We've just forgotten that we belong to one another.'" Kinship is what happens to us when we refuse to let that happen. With kinship as the goal, other essential things fall into place. Without it, there is no justice, no peace. I suspect that were kinship our goal, he says, we would no longer be promoting justice, we would be celebrating it. So where do we begin? Here's where the minister in me comes out. We must begin, of course, with our own spiritual practice. And this is where the theme, just breathe, becomes appropriate. Because if you are like me, and Sandy again acknowledged this herself, you have felt the gamut of emotions, from fear to hopelessness to deep grief to rage. And what am I to do with these emotions but breathe my way through them? And through the breath, my mind becomes quiet and enables me to be receptive to the greater truth of what is mine to do in this present moment. Breathing is life. It is life sustaining itself with the ebb and flow of each inhalation and exhalation. And we remember that the first action we take upon being birthed into this existence is an inhale. It's a breath, which is also called inspiration. And the last conscious or unconscious action we take before leaving this plane is an exhalation, an out-breath, also called an expiration. Focusing on our breath helps us to process, to shift, and to evolve. The meditator is invited to focus on his breath as a way of centering. We're told to breathe and count to 10 when we feel anger arising within us. The vocalist breathes in a particular way to give rise to a song. The pregnant mother is taught to breathe in a manner that assists and aids in the process of childbirth. Martial artists are taught to breathe to increase power. Weightlifters breathe a certain way to increase strength. And if we look at that story in Genesis, when the breath of God made Adam alive, we can recall that spirit breathes itself into life. Thich Nhat Hanh offers these wise words: feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Reverend Barbara Ledger suggests this practice for centering. She says, at the first sign of your rage, frustration, broken heart, or fear, take a breath. And remember that we are more effective when we're able to be in peace with ourselves, and when calm, we are better able to respond wisely. Then, she says, before the brain starts to kick in again, take 5 to 7 more breaths, affirming that you choose peace first with each breath. I choose peace first. This stops the fight or flight response, allowing our internal biology to shift and stop pumping us with adrenaline and cortisol. It is in this moment that the inherent wisdom and discernment become available to us again. She suggests that we also find somebody that we can talk to, that we can share our feelings with, we can talk them out, and someone who will listen and not try to change the way you feel. If you can't find somebody to talk to, you might want to write it out. That's what helps me when I'm feeling in turmoil. I sit down with my journal and I write it all out, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then I come back around and resolve it with a treatment. She suggests that you ask yourself a good question that helps you open and to know what is the best thing for you to be and do in the situation, such as, what is my gift to give in this moment? When we've centered ourselves through conscious breathing, it becomes much easier to remember that the neutral and impersonal law of cause and effect is always working to bring us what we focus on. Doesn't matter whether our focus is coming from fear and worry or from faith and belief in the science of possibility. We would like to keep ourselves on the side of faith and belief in the science of possibility, because we know that's when positive things are created. Reverend Barbara cautions us that our job is to find our humanity, And rather than reacting against the injustice, to take action to promote justice, whatever that might look like to you. This is a simple process, this peace first process, but it brings us back into empowerment, and it enables us to activate the law and the direction of our vision, of our purpose, and of the highest good for all concerned. As far as what actions to take, Google is our best friend right now because there are tons of resources coming up on the internet that point the way if you want to take social action. Two of these resources, just two of the many, are Anti-Racism Resources for White People and 75 Things White People Can Do to Stop Racism. We've been afforded many opportunities to educate ourselves on how to be more effective white allies in supporting our BIPOC brothers and sisters. Uh-oh. Did I use an unfamiliar acronym? Becoming familiar with this relatively new and different designation is one of the ways I have been re-educating myself. This acronym started out as POC or POC, standing for People of Color. But people realized it did not include all racially oppressed groups. So therefore, it was changed into BIPOC, B-I-P-O-C. It was created out of necessity by anti-racism activism that has grown significantly in the last few decades. So BIPOC, B-I-P-O-C, is the acronym for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. It is used to describe all racially oppressed groups in one word by those who aim to tear down systemic racism and white supremacy by giving BIPOC people a voice. Decidedly, I have a lot more to learn, and I'm so willing to do that. So I'm going to participate in this opportunity, and that is that Center for Spiritual Living just announced that they are offering a free 5-session online book study using the book Me and White Supremacy by Layla I think it's Saad, S-A-A-D. And the book is described as a reflective 28-day inward journey. Again, I'm proud of our organization. They are offering 3 separate versions of this book study, one for ministers, one for practitioners, and one for lay people. So all of you are free to join, and it is free. And I will, when I get the link for registration, which begins June 15th, I'll put it in our bulletin, and I also am happy to forward it to anybody that is interested and contacts me. What I know is, because I know our group of people and I know their hearts, I know that each of you will find your own way to love more fiercely, to learn more deeply, and to contribute more meaningfully to our ever-unfolding healing of our nation and our world. And knowing this, I'll close with the words of anthropologist Margaret Mead, who said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens can make a difference in the world. Indeed, it is all that ever has." And so it is. Thanks, everybody.
Wow. Today just gets better and better.